The town of Diamond Valley acknowledges and pays tribute to the traditional territories of the peoples of Treaty 7, which includes the Blackfoot Confederacy, comprised of Siksika, the Piikani, and the Gaidai First Nations, the Denny-Sutina First Nation, and the Stoney Nakoda, including Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Goodstoney First Nations, and the Métis Nation of Alberta. So we have our agenda in front of us. I will entertain a motion to adopt, or if there's any other amendments that we need to have. All right, I think I saw Cindy first. So all in favor of adopting our agenda as presented, that is moved. We don't have any delegations. Oh, we kind of do. It's good to be joined by our urban systems team. So ladies, I'm going to turn it right over to you to take it away for us and share with us the work that you're doing on our infrastructure master plan. You can come sit in these beautiful chairs if you like. Yeah. And it's all yours.
Hey, do you mind if I don't sit on that
You
chair?
can do whatever you prefer. You can stand and talk and whatever you prefer.
I like to move, so thank you.
That's same here.
And I also don't like having my back to everybody here, so yeah, thank you. Yeah,
take your time. Introduce yourselves and we will let you have the floor.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, everybody. So here again to talk to you, second workshop for the infrastructure master plan. And we're happy to be here. So I'm Megan Abid. I'm joined by my colleague Selena to kind of share where we're at now with the infrastructure master plan. Definitely want this to be a conversation, like everybody. So everybody kind of join in. Don't want it to be me just talking to everybody.
So on that note, Megan, do you prefer if we interrupt you for questions at the moment? Is that okay if we do that? All right, fair enough. So just let me know you want to interrupt and I'll try to get attention. Right, team, go ahead.
And that goes for the whole team. It's definitely the town's plan. And everybody with administration has been a part of it. Hey, Brenda, do I just click?
Yeah, the arrow I think should get you where you need to be. You might have to take a step closer to the computer.
Take your time.
We had it going earlier, but maybe the battery died.
It could just be me.
No.
Yeah, you did.
Well, I will be your clicker.
Okay. Okay. If you could go to the next one, that'd be great. Thank you. So a recap of the last workshop. In that last workshop, it's been a while. We built a shared understanding of how infrastructure decisions are made, why they matter, talking about the risk, service, and cost considerations. We discussed the past and upcoming council decisions related to infrastructure and how you think about those. Remember, we talked a little bit about the City of Calgary water main, and then that became even more of an issue after we were here. We clarified the respective roles of council and administration and infrastructure planning and decision making. We reviewed initial asset replacement forecast results. We're going to talk about an updated with everything in it and the potential implications for the town. So we'll dig a little bit deeper today. And we gathered feedback on the draft decision making framework that will guide those future infrastructure investments as well. So that was a recap of the last workshop. And if you go to the next slide, Iris, why we're here today is to review that updated asset replacement forecast, share some considerations for infrastructure planning. We're going to share some prioritization maps, and those to inform the town's capital planning process. We're also going to share some considerations about decision making related to growth infrastructure. So we are kind of in the process of analyzing what's required for growth infrastructure. We won't have that information, but it'll be in the overall report. Today, we'll talk a little bit more about your role and considerations overall with respect to growth infrastructure. And we'll talk about how the renewal prioritization maps and the growth infrastructure will inform upcoming and future capital plans as well. So kind of tying it all together. Next slide. So based on our experience in working with municipalities, overall, we find that a successful plan, it's my like least, like I do not want a plan that sits on the shelf. I want something that is something that is serves the context of Diamond Valley. And we found that people are usually successful with an infrastructure master plan if they're thinking long-term and it's strategic and it's proactive. So you're looking at the long-term, as well as short-term. That you've got defensible data that you can say, this is why we made the decision we have, and you've got some information to back it up. It's transparent, it allows them for some confidence, and then you've got a strong culture. Shared values, collaboration, consistent decision making. So those are kind of like the three pieces that we find leads to the most success in implementation of an infrastructure master plan. Oftentimes, there's like a focus on the data, but it's just like it requires all those things for it to be successful. Slide. So with that, culture kind of being like the basis of everything. Here's the design team alliance that was created the last workshop that we were here. So if you recall, we talked about what was the culture that leads to successful decision making. And we did a bit of a word cloud based on what we heard from everybody. Strategic, brave, respect, trust, and continuous improvement were the items that were the approach that was identified to be standing out the most as being important to this team. And so, it's been a few months. I'm curious to hear from you guys which one has this team just demonstrated most clearly in the past few months since we last met? And then also what's one that the team needs to be more aware of, needs more of moving forward based on what you know now. So what have you guys been most successful with? And then which one do you feel like there needs to be more of? And hoping to kind of go around. Cindy, I'm looking at you.
Start away, Cindy.
I'd say we're really brave to admit to residents we might have shut their pool down. I think they're any braver than that, so.
Yeah, that's huge. Yeah. Yeah, and then is there one that you feel that there needs to be more of showing up in the group?
No, I feel like we've just been on a hold waiting for this plan, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. That it's like the dark cloud looming over, knowing that this is really gonna inform everything going forward.
Okay, so that, it's just like wanting that certainty, right? And it's like to support that decision making. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
I think we've been really good at communication. I think we all really work well together. And I think just what we could maybe work on is just being a little bit more proactive instead of reactive to things like the pool. We're trying to stay on top of it, but I think we maybe could have gotten a little more ahead of it with the community.
Yeah. That's it. That's the pool's such a.
I know.
Yeah.
We're all gonna be, you're gonna hear a lot about her.
Yeah.
I actually heard High River was actually shut down until September, so.
They've had more.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the number one recreation amenity for most communities, and most expensive. So it's a tough one for sure. Thank you.
Yeah, for me, I think where I've seen improvement is continuous improvement. And I'll use an example coming out of an audit. We noticed there was some gaps in the way certain items were being tracked and received. And we really tightened up some of those policies very quickly, and I'm very pleased to see that. What could we be doing better? Honestly, I think we're really in a good place, and I like the path that we're on, to be quite frank.
Great. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, I would agree with Cindy. I think we've made a lot of steps getting out there in terms of being brave. I don't know why humility's up there. I don't know. We definitely try to be empathetic. I thought I saw empathetic up there. Yeah, I did. It's above the A. Okay. We certainly try to appear to make ourselves like put ourselves in people's shoes to know how that they would feel. Like when it comes to the pool or new development across their street, we try to do that, but we also have we're trying to have the whole community's best interest at heart. So I don't know, humility is a challenging one. Maybe we could be a little bit better at that, but that's where I would land.
Okay, yeah, appreciate that, thank you.
Support. Is that one thing, support decisions aligned?
I think it's support decisions and then aligned as, a
Cause
separate.
I was gonna say, we're pretty aligned in this group. Makes things a lot easier for, on the trust side. It kind of opens up the whole umbrella. How we come in prepared. Our meetings are pretty quick, clear, concise. We know what we're doing. But I think what we need to work on is the proactive or even get moving on some of these pain points that we're sitting on.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure, thank you.
Strategic. I think that, well, right now, we're looking towards the future. We've made some hard decisions in the past that are looking towards the future. And I can't really go much more than that. As far as something we need more of, I really can't think of anything that we need a lot more of. One that I don't like up there is progressive. That has a lot of negative connotations for me. The mayor of Los Angeles is progressive. The mayor of New York is progressive. And it just has negative connotations.
Yeah, like, yeah, how you relate to that, that piece, yeah, shit, that, thank you.
I'm gonna say strategic as well, and we recently completed our council's strategic plan, pardon me. And it's right here up on our desk, so I think when we're making decisions, we can refer back to that. I think that's a positive.
It's huge, yeah,
And I think another thing is, Cindy's very good at thinking outside the box. Bringing forward is a water policy. So I think the more that we can think outside the box, it's gonna make it easier for them.
yeah, it's like the why, like, why are we doing what we're doing, and,
Thinking outside the box, they're trying to be progressive.
yeah, for sure, thanks.
Yeah, I think strategic. I mean, that's our orientation, right? We dropped a lot of the fluff that we used to do, and I think this tonight will really illustrate how hard the decision making is going to get if we want to be a going concern in the future. And yeah, I think what we have to do better, maybe work towards more, would be not to do better, but we're on the path, I think, of continuous improvement. Like Jonathan said there, coming out of the audit, and since then, we've just been every week adding new process and systems to the town. So it's really part of that professionalization of the corporation.
First, do you wanna? Good.
Thanks.
Abby speaks for staff.
She said.
It's a bravery.
I do value this council's bravery. It's been a tough year for decisions and change and all kinds of other things. So I think I feel like they're on the right track with how they're looking at things.
I actually looked at this earlier and so picked two that jumped out to me. So brave, I think that council has been on the path making brave decisions. For me, it started with the utility rates. So that really jumped out at me. And then not that there needs to be more of necessarily, but proactive, which is the path I believe council is on with their long-term planning.
Yeah, thanks.
I was not prepared to answer this at all, so.
That's fair, that's fair. I tend to do that to people, so yeah, appreciate that. Do you wanna like, add anything later if it comes to you, or? Okay,
I think a lot of the points that are worth making have been made.
great.
Yeah, I think we've made some great stride towards implementing strategy. I think we've attempted to be strategic, but never really come to full fruition on it. So I think with our leadership, we've been able to implement strategy, and I think that's critical. And I think that's I believe that shows a lot of trust between council and admin. So I think I know I certainly appreciate that. And yeah, I think communication process could be a little bit refined. I think we're finding our stride in that area too, and I think we're moving in the right direction for sure.
Yeah, thank you. What are you noticing from what you heard from everybody? What are you hearing?
A lot of it aligns.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And just from like someone who works with a bunch of multiple different sizes of municipalities in Alberta, the strategic and brave is like really hard. Especially with councils, you've got like a 4-year period, you get a lot of pressure from the public. So to make decisions thinking long-term that are not popular is a tough thing to do. It takes a lot of bravery. And knowing that there's limited resources, it is challenging sometimes to be proactive. But I think what I heard earlier is if you focus on your strategic plan and moving in like the same direction, that you'll have more capacity to be proactive instead of reacting to everything that's coming at you.
See, that's what I meant to say.
Yeah. That's I knew it. Yeah. So yeah, like it's a lot to be proud of. Like really be proud of. In how far you guys have come in the last few years. This one, yeah. So today we'll talk. We'll revisit the purpose of the infrastructure master plan, the context, the asset replacement forecast, some key takeaways to be thinking about with respect to that. We'll talk about decision-making framework. As Adam mentioned, there's some tough decisions ahead, and so it's like how you might think about making those decisions. The risk maps that we created. And then, like I mentioned, the growth infrastructure considerations, and how all that relates to your capital plan coming up, and then the next steps. Okay,
Okay, review of the purpose and the outcomes of the IMP. So the outcomes of the IMP, I know we talked about this a couple of months ago, but just to reiterate, the IMP is going to help inform a 10-year capital plan. It'll help guide your future development decisions, explain the reasons for prioritizing infrastructure projects to both council and the general public. So that back to that transparency piece. It is going to be an implementable plan, support transparency. It can be easily updated by the town in the future. The IMP prioritizes information gathering on underground infrastructure, followed by roads and then facilities, and provides that supporting infrastructure information. So that data piece that will inform future offsite levy programs.
And just a kind of a reminder, these outcomes came from meetings with administration on what was important. It's important to identify that this plan needs to be the town's. And so when we're creating like GIS and information that can be given to the town, it's not owned by Urban Systems or MPE, so that you guys can update it and use it for your purposes. Next slide.
So where are we at as with the IMP as a whole? So the infrastructure information gathering was one bucket of the IMP. MPE is leading that. That is partially complete. We are just waiting on some road condition information, which will be happening soon and will be included in the report. The second bucket is infrastructure prioritization. Urban Systems leading that bucket. The draft will be shared today with updates then reflected in the report. The infrastructure prioritization is all of the risk maps that Megan will be presenting in a few minutes. The third bucket is growth infrastructure considerations. We will talk about the general considerations today, but the results of the growth infrastructure analyses will be provided in the report. And then the last bucket is the implementation piece. And that will be, we'll talk about some of the higher level stuff today, but the majority of it will be in the final report. Okay, so infrastructure and decision making. So today's main focus will be on existing infrastructure. It'll be focused on replacement decisions and prioritization. Like I mentioned, we are still going to talk a little bit about growth infrastructure, but it's more so on decisions on financing and funding growth infrastructure. So we'll touch on that today as well. Okay, big picture, just how this IMP fits into the other strategic objectives. So I understand you guys have your strategic plan, and then we've got your MDP, and that feeds into now the IMP that we are preparing, which will then inform the 10-year capital plan.
Okay, so why does this matter? Again, this infrastructure master plan needs to be reflective of what's important to the town. And your MDP, which is fairly new, like directly states that the town needs to address aging infrastructure systems, support sustainable investment, provide informed decision-making, evidence-based prioritization. And then your like hot off the press strategic plan mentions the commitment to building a financially secure and self-sufficient future through thoughtful stewardship, careful planning, and sustainable decisions. Again, that strategic approach is coming through. Invest wisely in safe, reliable infrastructure and modern facilities, and thoughtful and planned growth that offers diverse housing options. So this infrastructure master plan supports those higher level objectives. You know, the last workshop, we went into like more detail on the roles that everybody plays in making decisions. But really it's mostly, you know, that you've got operations, informing, providing like on the ground information on infrastructure and what's out there, providing that to management. And then they inform council on that decision making. Council's informed by the community. So it's kind of like administration is providing council with all the information to make good decisions, and then council's informed by the community, and then those decisions are made and provided to administration. So it's a two-way piece. And so it's important to always kind of be conscious of the roles that everybody plays with respect to this decision making. Okay, this is what everybody's been waiting for. Asset replacement forecast. So an asset replacement forecast, it gives you like a high level understanding of the risks that the town will face. So it clarifies where you know, the pool, for example, it's like it's reaching, it will tell you, you know, a pool is reaching the end of its life. We got to start planning for that, right? Or better understanding what we're going to do with it. So that it's kind of intended to give you just a general sense of like where your infrastructure is at, and then what you need to do to make decisions, what more information you need, and planning financially for those bigger investments. So next slide. shows you, your infrastructure value distribution. So this pie chart shows you, all of the infrastructure, and the costs for replacement as of today's dollars. And how that's kind of split between, storm, wastewater, water, parks and recreation, buildings and road systems. The total replacement value is 584 million for all of your infrastructure. Understanding Diamond Valley's population is about 5,300. So that is a per capita replacement value of $110,000 per person. So like each person in Diamond Valley owns $110,000 worth of infrastructure. So it's like, and it's in alignment with a lot of other municipalities. Any surprises there, or just in terms of how this is?
It's in,
So that's $2026.
Yes, yeah.
And another question. Shrek, how is that? Is that in this or not?
No, not included.
Okay,
Yeah, so it's the water systems, the distribution reservoirs, pump stations.
but it's 90% owner, or it's basically should be included because we have to pay for it. Should it not, or
It wasn't in the scope.
wasn't in the scope?
It wasn't in the scope.
But it should still be on our radar that we should be planning for it, right?
Truck should be.
as a church responsibility, as a commission. It's same as Breast.
Yeah, but all they do is say, well, just pay up, town, that's what's gonna happen, so you might as well plan for it. No.
Yeah, so council can make a motion
Yeah, okay,
if you want it.
Yeah, okay.
Don't add things 11th minute, right?
don't add, so.
Don't add things in the 11th minute.
Yeah, no, I can see why we did it this way here, but as far as when we do long-term planning after this is over. Our eye still needs to be thinking about that, so we're not spending money on a pool and arena when our water treatment's about to fail the next year and Shark's gonna be coming to us for money.
Yeah, that's,
Yes.
it's a fair, fair piece. Potentially could think about asking for something that provides a little bit more of like the longer term expectations for those pieces.
Go ahead, Craig.
Yeah, sorry, with respect to Shrek, the operating and the business plan that Shrek has. It's understood that they would have their own asset management plan for that facility. It wasn't included in this because this is a full asset or infrastructure master plan for our infrastructure. And Shrek should have their own operating plans for their assets that, yes, we are 90% shareholders, but that documentation should be made available for the town to review. So we should be able to understand that separate from this document.
Slide. Okay, so this is, there's lots going on here. This is a chart that shows over 20 years. When the infrastructure is expected to reach the end of its expected service life. So there's literature out there that says, you know, that, for example, PVC pipe, a typical sanitary pipe, for example, would last 80 years. And so we put that into Excel spreadsheet and say, well, this pipe was installed 2001. And so then 2081, it's expected to probably need replacing. So it's an estimate for when you're probably going to need to look at replacing infrastructure. And it just informs kind of when you might expect to be spending some money. There's all the different assets are kind of like different color codes. And so when you're looking at this, you're looking at, like I typically would look at like, where's the spikes? And then that we've got a spreadsheet that's more for like administration to look at, but it's kind of saying like, what is this? What's this purple? So it's roadway systems, and then if I look into it further, you'll see it's a lot of like sidewalks and curbs and gutter, and other pieces of the road system. And so then you can kind of go, okay, so how would we want to manage that? Oftentimes roads specifically can be maintained. So you can, do add some additional gravel if it's gravel, or do some crack sealing or filling in potholes to make the roads last a bit longer. So it's not like you have to go out and now spend a whole bunch of money on your roads, but it gives you an idea that you've gotta spend some money to keep it going for a period of time. In 2020, it's hard to see, but 2035, I think it was water and sewer. So, a lot of like the town was kind of built around the same time, so a bunch of infrastructure was put in, and then it's reaching the end of its life in 2035. Again, you might not have to replace all of the infrastructure, and so and this is based on service life. So then what the town can do is to do more inspection to see like how is this pipe standing up? Can it go a little bit longer? And so there's been some sanitary video inspection that's been done as part of the infrastructure master plan to better understand what the status is of the infrastructure, which would kind of push some of these pieces out. The overall, so this is very conservative, okay? So it's assuming that, a water pipe is gonna reach the end of its life, and then you're gonna go in and you're gonna dig up that one water main, and then you're gonna dig up the asphalt, and then you're gonna put the asphalt back on, and then that's all you're gonna do. So there's those costs associated with it. The town typically would look at the whole road, and we'll talk about that in a second. Would be like, okay, we're gonna replace the infrastructure on the road, which is much more efficient and cost effective. So there's decisions that the town can make to minimize some of the costs expected.
So you're saying basically it's double counting, because if we're looking to replace the value of replacing a road in like the first spike, but then also replacing the water separately and replacing.
That's right, yeah.
Later.
Yeah, so it's not a budget, it's not a budgetary, like we're not saying to put down $4.5 million a year. But it gives you a general sense of like, you need to be putting some money down. And make some decisions on how you're gonna do that cost effectively.
So as part of this IMP process, is that budgetary, the more realistic budget going to be part of that, or is that exercise we have to undertake later?
So we are gonna provide some capital projects based on the risk assessment at a higher level and more accurate than this. And then we suggest for the projects that the town's like thinking about going ahead with, getting a more detailed look at like that specific road and what's in it, and going from there. So the 20-year life cycle annual, like over 20 years, like looking at this graph and the infrastructure that would be needing replacement, at a high level, it's like $4.5 million a year put towards infrastructure. The average annual life cycle investment is $9.6 million a year. So that number is based on like the life cycle of the projects beyond 20 years, and looking at depreciation. So ideally, you're putting $10 million a year into infrastructure. Is that possible? Probably not. But and that is normal across municipalities in Canada. It's like there's a gap. And that, per capita investment is between $1,800 and $3,400 per person investment. And that's in line with a lot of other Alberta municipalities and municipalities of this size across Canada. Like I said, this isn't like what needs to happen, but it informs how you go about making decisions about your infrastructure. This is usually when the room kind of just like.
Well, we're looking at a $3 million deficit.
Yeah,
annually, right? After our funding mechanisms are coming in. So it's,
yeah, it's a tough position. Alberta municipalities had a kind of like they're trying to work with the government on that, to bridge that, but it's,
we're not alone.
no, it's an issue across, Alberta, yeah.
Go ahead, Adam, and then Cindy.
Yeah, thanks, Jared. And sorry, I don't mean to be, you just have to not think that we can push this off to a
Exactly.
higher government, okay? Like advocacy and AV meetings isn't going to fix this. It's just this room.
Totally agree.
That's it.
Yeah.
So, not to
I
be
mean,
too.
I've been part of AP meetings for 9 years. I don't know how many resolutions we voted on for lobbying, and I don't know how many. In fact, I should say how
Take time out.
few take time out, right? And so it's very well spoken. I mean, we can lobby all we want regardless. I've been under 2 different federal, provincial governments. Same reality.
Yeah, thanks, Jared. Just to kind of back up what Cindy was saying earlier too with the pool and that, right? This is why when we look at this stuff, you know, you add to Schrock, which isn't even included in this, it's not even in our radar, right?
Yeah.
You know, that's why we have to stay, or I recommend council stay focused on just the nitty gritty on this, right? Because as you see in the later slides, my interpretation of this at least is that all of a sudden roads becomes a nice to have in terms of new pavement. So that's where my thinking has shifted strategically just in the last few weeks, is to say that, you know, really we're just talking about that linear water and sewer. Just food for thought.
Good point where our attention and focus needs to be. Go ahead, Cindy, and Colin, I see your hand. Okay,
Yeah,
go
I
ahead,
don't
Cindy.
think that's very new, like, we've always talked, that's why there's gravel roads and Black Diamond, is we've been waiting for that linear stuff to need
Yeah.
replacement, and then the pavement goes on. So I think that's been widely accepted, I think by everyone. I did just want to double check on the curbs and gutters, we're not including any of those like areas that don't have sidewalks and curbs that would have been nice to put them in. This is just the existing
That's correct.
ones, yeah, I
we
figured that
currently
would be,
Yeah.
yeah.
We did,
We don't have more than.
yeah, we did, for the most part, it's replacing like with like.
Yeah.
The only exception is we did assume that you guys would pave if you were gonna dig up the road, that you would pave it
Yeah.
afterwards. And that's fair.
And that's a fair assumption.
Yeah,
And on a side note to that too, if I may, if you recall, First Ave North, there's chunks of that road that had no sidewalk. And through scope of work and through the tender process, we added sidewalk in those areas. So that was we may have been able to cut that cost a little bit more, but there was that feeling that having that extra sidewalk contiguous through that neighborhood was important, so.
Thanks for giving me more to shovel.
thanks, Craig.
But even moving forward to that point, I mean, I'm looking at our strategic plan, priority number 1, enhancing our appeal. And those kind of, as it's in scope, even though it might be extending that scope, it enhances the appeal. So that's part of the thing that we have to consider. Go ahead, Cindy.
But at the same time, very smart thing to understand for planning, because the
Yeah.
developers made more profit because they didn't pay for the sidewalks, and now the taxpayers
Exactly.
on the hook for it. Right.
I'm sure that'll be part of our discussion
So-
moving forward, is how we're
Yeah.
gonna make sure
That doesn't
certain
happen.
things are funded like this and what the developer is actually paying moving forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you bring up a good point, is, a lot of the infrastructure master plan is focused on the risk and the capital cost considerations. But there's the level of service considerations as well. So, I know, like in the past, Black Diamond had, two sidewalks, like a sidewalk on either side, but it was like not many people are walking on the sidewalks, and so there was a decision to just not worry about replacement of like one of them, or just like not worrying about like heaving or worrying about those pieces, because the cost versus like the usage was low. But then, a place that you want people walking and people are gonna use it, you might make a decision to say, yeah, we're willing to pay that cost to make it inviting and welcoming to people. Any other questions, comments? Another piece is, you'll notice that orange is buildings. So I was like, make a joke, we assume that like buildings blow up after 50 years. So we're like, have the full replacement cost. So again, it's just helping you understand that, okay, like we're gonna probably have to invest something in this building coming up. And so do we need to do some more analysis to better understand what that looks like and what's okay to keep going? Okay, any other questions, comments? Craig, do you wanna, I don't know if you wanna add anything or? Okay, okay. Okay. Next one. I think I've already talked about this, but it shows this asset replacement shows when assets reach the end of life and associated cost exposure, and highlights strategic risks. And it signals where more information is needed. So like I said, maybe we need to look at we've got a whole bunch of sanitary infrastructure coming up. Maybe we need to look at like what's actually needing replacement right away versus what can wait. O&M, like maybe we'll just put some more effort into operations and maintenance of this to keep it going longer. And considering the life cycle cost, so like, are you spending a lot of money on operations and maintenance versus like the actual cost over a lifespan of replacement as well? So thinking about those pieces as well. And then the town's risk tolerance, you might just decide you're okay with the risk of a piece of infrastructure given. That it's okay. So like my example of, it might be a small, like couple house, cul-de-sac, with infrastructure. And so maybe you're okay with that level of service being a little bit lower because of the amount of people that it impacts versus the costs. And so that's a decision. Or like your buildings, right? It's just providing the lower level of service, so that you don't have to put a bunch of costs into it. You're okay with just tolerating those pieces. So a little bit more on this piece, like I said, there's curbing and sidewalk and water valves. So water valves have less of a lifespan than the pipe that they're attached to. And so a lot of them are reaching the end of their life before the pipe does. And so it's, it's like always exercising the valves and looking at replacement where needed. The 2025-2026 buildings, I know there's been lots of conversations about the previous Black Diamond Public Works shop. Now I think it's a park shop, the pool, and then the Flare and Derrick. So those buildings are at the end of their service life. Like I said, they blow up now. And so I know there's already conversations about decisions related to those ones. And then 2035, like I said, a lot of water mains and sanitary mains are reaching the end of their life. And so just planning proactively for that. And the next section we'll dive into that. Oil fields regional arena, again, blowing up in 2037. We'll talk a little bit, but there's been some upgrades already in the arena, but it's just kind of thinking about anything else that is needed for that piece. So this is kind of how the asset replacement forecast can be used to inform how you make those decisions. Again, that proactive piece. So we've got some kind of some considerations to inform decision making, and I've talked a little bit about that. Further investigation of sanitary mains. There's been some already. But always having like a process of videoing and keeping on top of understanding those pieces. Tracking water main breaks, so that you can kind of see where the issues are. Tracking operations and maintenance on gravel roads. This can be pretty basic, like having a map and having the guys that are maintaining it just like mark up on the map where there's issues or where they've maintained. Assessment of current and desired level of service, considerations for buildings. I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. And really all of this is informed by the risk maps we're about to talk about. So it's kind of like, we're giving you generally, like, here's some strategic risks that are coming up. And then we've dived in more into what that means, like what that risk looks like. And so we'll talk about that and how you might make decisions about those pieces. Pause. Any questions, comments about that?
Like, Craig?
I'll just give you some operational understanding of a few things too that go hand in hand with this. So operationally, our preventative maintenance processes, we do, for example, sanitary line flushes. We'll flush lines, and our operators, when they're at their flushing, they're shoving a snake down the line. It's got a water jet nozzle that cleans, and they may find a snag. And when they're doing that, if they find a snag, that triggers an operational decision. Let's send a camera down there to see what's going on. Why are we snagging in there? And so we're actively doing, I just want you guys to understand that this is something we do regularly anyways. It's not something we're missing. It's just part of that process that we start getting better at recording. So that would trigger, say, a camera to go down, and then the camera gives us footage and we go, okay, well, there's a line separation or a collapse or just, a plug. And so those are processes that we go through currently. Just so you're aware.
Yeah, I apologize.
Doing these
It's
things.
like, these are kind of like, based on the ARF, this is like things to think about. But like Craig has been, I know, kind of on top of, the operation, the maintenance, like the hydro testing, making sure everything's working, like that's a regular thing as well.
And now that Carrie's back in the room, if I might, make a comment, cul-de-sacs are expensive.
Well, luckily, in the municipal development plan, we have stated must be a gridiron and not cul-de-sacs moving forward in suburban subdivision development.
For understanding cul-de-sacs, you end up with multiple homes in one bubble. All those sanitary lines run to one manhole and then from a short stub into a main. And we're constantly having to flush on a regular basis those cul-de-sacs because there's not enough flow to keep solids moving down the line, and they often start to back up. And if we don't flush those cul-de-sacs, people get stuff in their basement. So cul-de-sacs create more operational work. Just food for thought.
Yeah, just clarifying that the gridiron that we required, but we just named a new place. It's a P section. Is that that's not a cul-de-sac? Is that kind of a gridiron? Not really. Those are allowed.
So Royal Place is at the end of Royal Ave. It's a very defined parcel on the edge of town. We worked with that developer. I think we had 6 iterations on the design. And basically the only thing that works in there is a P-loop.
But you're talking about like straight blocks, like in the old districts of town, going back to squares and not even allowing the P-type loops.
There would be a strong preference against that unless there again was some practical reason as to why that would be a consideration.
Here you go.
Right. Okay, like I said, so I gave you a whole bunch of information. It's like, okay, what do we do about this, right? How do we make decisions moving forward? And so revisiting what we talked about, and we have already talked about it now. That idea of, making decisions about the use and care of infrastructure to deliver services. So the whole point of Unite Infrastructure is you're delivering services to your community in a way that considers your current and future needs coming up quite a bit. You manage risks and opportunities and then make the best use of the resources that you have. And that, goes to kind of what Adam was saying, right? It's like your circle of influence. I saw that over here and I love it. The circle of influence and circle of concern. The infrastructure gap is a circle of concern, but it's like, what can you do about it? So to do this, council staff need enough information to confidently make these defensible decisions, which are intended to provide in the infrastructure master plan. It's most effective when the entire organization understands the why and the how. So why are we doing this and how are we going to do it? My favorite decision-making triangle. As I mentioned kind of in the last workshop, here's the decision-making triangle. The role of a municipality is to provide services to residents. And you get to make decisions on what level of service you provide to those residents, what services in general that you're providing. No one's ever able to provide like the highest level of service, mitigate all the risks and do it like with no money. So it's that there's trade-offs that are needed always to make good decisions. Again, they're not gonna be perfect. It's based on what you know. The circle around here is communications and information management. So the reality is you have to make decisions all the time, whether you have information or not. And so you use the information that you have at that time and you make a decision. 10 years later, you might get more information and go, oh, that wasn't the best decision, but it was what you knew at the time. And so it's important to just be conscious of that, right? Because not being conscious and not making a decision is actually making a decision. With the water being in Calgary. The service, when you think about it, is the quality of the service, the quantity, with respect to infrastructure, usually that's the capacity of the infrastructure, and reliability. And so we are gonna provide you as part of the growth infrastructure review, information on the capacity in your infrastructure to serve communities. So you're providing services, and you're providing a level of service, and then it's understanding the risks to you being able to provide those services. When we think about risk, we're thinking about what's the chances of a risk happening, of the likelihood. With respect to infrastructure, it's what's the likelihood of it failing, and then what's the impact of it failing. What's going to happen if it fails? And so with respect to infrastructure, if it's under a highway, the impact of it failing is higher. If it's under a laneway, the impact of failure is lower. And so that's what we were looking at when we were looking at impact and likelihood. That's an example. And then understanding costs and funding. So how much is it going to cost? Capital costs, and that's what we're focusing on with the infrastructure master plan, is we're looking at just the capital costs currently. But there's always the life cycle cost. So how much is operations and maintenance over a lifespan, and then also retirement, because there can be costs associated with that. And then how are you going to pay for it? And it could be taxes, grants, offset levies, utility rates, which is typical for Diamond Valley. So understanding all those things and then making those tough decisions. Like I said, IMP is mostly focused on risk and capital costs, but we do provide some considerations related to the other pieces. Questions, comments about that? Okay. Slide please. So we've just got, when you're thinking about capital projects, I put some decision considerations just to think about for the town. And just thinking about what's the purpose of this project? What's the core driver for this? What problem is it solving? What opportunity is it providing? What's the risk of not doing this project? So impact and likelihood, safety or failure, compliance, service. How does this project protect or change the service? So does it increase the level of service? Does it prevent decrease? Does it maintain? What will it cost to build and operate? How will you pay for it? Which we just talked about. What are the dependencies? Is this project related to another project? And like understanding those pieces. If you don't do this project, can you do this project or what's implications? Those trade-offs, what do we gain and what do we give up by doing or not doing this project? Time, think about time, money, staff capacity, service impact, risk exposure, and then some kind of summarizing those conversations. So it's not a we are not going to be the engineers that tell you do this project and then this project and then this project. It needs to be a decision made by the town. We'll give you the information to inform those decisions, and there's some things to think about when you're working through whether a project's to be included in a capital plan. Any comments or questions about those considerations?
I'm just thinking about, like any future development. So like on your list, you
Yeah.
have some priorities. There were, I think it was number 6 or something. It's the Kaiser lands. So if the developer were to come and say, you know what, we're gonna go, we want to get moving on this. That'd be a time that we can maybe do a partnership of sharing the costs.
Yes, now I gotta look at the map here, but Kaiser, if the. Let's revisit that,
Okay.
because we'll talk a little bit more about how you might want to think about growth infrastructure.
Yeah.
In a little bit, but and it's related to that, right? It's how the town makes decisions about what the developer pays for, what the town pays for.
Because it's one of our, you have it listed as one of our priority.
Yes, yeah, so it's listed as a high risk related to infrastructure replacement. But it's a really good point, is looking at how that infrastructure might serve Kaiser lands, which we'll be looking at. I'm pointing at Selena because she's doing a lot of the analysis. And then how much of that infrastructure is providing capacity for growth versus existing areas. Yeah, great question, thank you, yeah. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Next slide, please. So like I said, we're gonna focus mostly on overall risk. Already talked about like what's the impact and likelihood. The infrastructure master plan will include like a lot of risk information for your linear infrastructure. And then for the non-linear infrastructure, we provide the likelihood of failure. So based on if the non-linear infrastructure, which is like lift stations or buildings or reservoirs, when is it expected to reach the end of its life? And then what do you need to, like, it triggers the need to kind of look into this further. Whereas the linear infrastructure, we're saying, like, we have a general sense of what would be needed. And so it's kind of like, when is it gonna actually fail? What's the consequence of it failing? And we provided more detail on the linear infrastructure maps as well. So today we're going to look at the overall risk, so the likelihood and consequence together. Overall risk for your water, sanitary, and suburban roads. We're going to provide the non-budgetary capital cost ranges to give you a general sense as to how much it costs, but like you said, we're suggesting that if you guys move forward with including a project in a budget, that you get a more detailed engineering cost estimate. And we organized it to show what the risk scores were for all of the infrastructure in a road. Like, so I mentioned earlier that asset replacement forecast said we're going to dig up and we're going to replace just the water, which municipalities have done. And then 2 years later, like, oh, sanitary is failing, let's dig up this road again, make everybody really happy. And so how we've organized the risk is that we've added up the risk for each infrastructure type in a block to see what the overall risk score is for that infrastructure. And that gives you a general sense as to efficiencies and effectiveness of saying, okay, if we replace this higher risk road and the infrastructure in it, you're tackling a bunch of things with one project. and it gives you a general sense as to like those larger street improvement projects. But then we also have like a risk score for, like, you've got a water main all by itself over here. We've got the scores for that so that you can kind of go, okay, but this water main over here is a high risk of failure now. And so we need to include that in the capital planning.
So I just want to throw another tidbit of information out there for those folks that may not know. Turner Valley largely separated their sewer and water lines. Water largely runs down laneways in Turner Valley with sewer and storm in the streets. So you may notice in time that some capital projects are more expensive than others, and there's a likelihood if it's Turner Valley and it's cheaper than a similar project in Black Diamond, that cost association is because one town has sewer water in the street and one town has only sewer in the street.
Thanks. Just curious, which is the better approach?
There's pros and cons to both. Certainly when you're digging up an alleyway to replace or repair a water line, less expensive because you're just passing back gravel. However, when you have equally aging infrastructure that both need to be replaced, it's nice when they're side by side. So it just depends.
Hey, all right, let's see them. So, be small, hey, this is the sanitary, so all the sanitary sewers, the risk of failure, and so this risk of failure is related to, the age of the infrastructure, as well as if there was video inspection done, and there was a deficiency notified, the risk got bumped up higher. And the red and the orange are like the higher risk, where you want to tackle that pretty quickly. And you'll notice that like Main Street on the west side here is a higher risk. It's obviously like a more used street, and so it's going to be a higher consequence. And then the infrastructure, the sanitary infrastructure is identified as like a higher likelihood of failure. And then we've got a few oranges over here in the older area of town on the east side. But lots of the blue and the green are basically pretty new infrastructure.
They're not in as bad a shape as I had originally envisioned.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. I had to go, Selena and I got an emergency call with Craig being like, is this right? But when you look at it, there's been quite a few replacements over the years as well. And we're using like nowadays PVC is used and it's got a longer lifespan. Okay, next slide. Here's the water infrastructure. So there's a note about the SHRUC. So the GIS, the town's GIS includes the SHRUC name, and recognizing there's some different governance, which we've already talked about. We just kind of showed it there. Craig wanted to make sure that it was something that everybody was aware of, knowing that there's different decision-making considerations there. So that it's shown as kind of red in the background. It's not that it's a high risk, it's just showing that it's different. But you've got a little bit of red here, and then this is the highway on the east side, showing as a high risk piece. And then a few again in this older area of town over here.
I'm sorry, can I just clarify? I just want to look at, like, does a lot of this information come from based on what Craig has given you, or is it just based on a mathematical lifespan?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, so it's mathematical lifespan,
Yeah.
for the water.
Yeah.
Specifically, and then, knowing that Craig's kind of like taken over, like he's developing processes for both sides, it's, in the future, it'll include, you know, the leak, detection, any results there and all those pieces as well. But this is just based on material and age.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And yeah, you'll notice that there's quite a few green and blues, throughout. The highway is obviously a red because it is under a water main, under the highway. And, there's some chunks here too.
Would Alberta Transportation Development Fund?
So do you want to speak to that or do we?
Yeah, I can speak to that. Great question. Unfortunately, that Alberta Transportation is only concerned about the highway. The infrastructure itself is the towns. So sidewalks, curb, gutter, they're not too, they don't like to get involved with any of that too much. Even with the road surface, if we dig up the road to do any underground work, because we've disturbed the road, we pay for that replacement. With some exception, they will, if the road is already on their schedule as being retired, they may contribute a small portion. So Sunset was a perfect example of that. When we replaced the utilities under Sunset, we probably got 40 cents on the dollar for the road surface replacement.
Okay.
I know that there was been conversations with AT about replacement and it sounds like Sunset was just done, so you guys are aware of that. It's with this piece, and it's just getting approvals, but they're open to the town doing that replacement. And then, this is the road infrastructure risk of failure paved, right off the hop. It looks bad, but again, it's something that the town can manage, and make decisions about. So this gives you a general sense of like, of what this is based on, currently on age and material. And I noticed that we've got some roads that are like, currently under consideration with the golf course, or on ownership, but it's just information for you guys. And there's a bunch of reds and oranges. This is a good example of when we talk about the asset replacement forecast, doing those condition assessments. And so those condition assessments are going to be, are underway, to better understand some of these higher risk areas. And so that might shift a little bit on the prioritization once we get that condition information.
So if a water line is say 50 years, what is typically a road, what is the lifespan?
So yeah, I think it's like around 25 years that you start to need like some more maintenance, of it. So it's a lower lifespan.
It's also based on the type and frequency of use. So a haul road hopefully is built to withstand heavier loads, but because of the weight of the materials, if it's not properly managed and seasonal axle weights aren't managed, that road will break down faster. So on and so forth. So in residential streets, not necessarily seeing a lot of traffic unless you're living on Third. Those kinds of things are factors to consider.
Thank you.
Okay. So, yeah, we split up the paved and then the unpaved, just to give you a general sense of those two different, types of roads. So Iris, did you flip already? No, okay, so then the next one, this is the unpaved, unpaved roads are here. So there's a few unpaved, a lot of them are that SB 90, like the oil oil roads, which are deceiving. They can look like they're paved. So yeah, just a few here, that are showing up as red or orange. Comments, questions about that one? Roads are easier for you guys, you get to experience the roads, so is this in line with what you experience with the roads?
I'd say so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was the expectation.
It's actually not as bad as I thought it was gonna be.
Start putting a dollar amount next to that.
That's the problem. Right? It's just development. You know,
But you're right, and
I was
like,
expecting just to see way more
Red and
red,
stuff
like
over there.
tons more
Yeah.
red. I was like, oh, maybe this is manageable.
It doesn't cost a lot to paint your house, but if you're broke, it does.
that's a really good analogy. Go ahead, Cindy.
So is first on there because it doesn't have a second coat?
Yeah.
It's on the end page. So. Cause we just did.
There's this yellow there, right?
Oh. Okay, we'll look at that, yeah. That might not have been updated.
So the counties? No, First Ash
We
North,
just did-
it's yellow there, right?
oh,
And it's on the unpaved list. Technically, it's got one coat.
Okay, that needs to be updated, thank you.
It's got one.
Yeah, it's all paid now.
And it's holding up good, Craig?
Yeah, it's, so next week, we, a meeting actually, Urban
Yeah, we're gonna-
and Shawnee on site to do a deficiency walkthrough. We're looking at putting the second top coat on. Yeah.
Thanks.
Well, to clarify though, your worship will come back, because it's.
For the costing of it. Yeah.
But
Go ahead, Carrie, sorry, I didn't see your hand.
I just think that this is like a really great example actually of what Megan's been talking about in terms of costs versus service versus like the need to have, the want to have, the quality versus the longevity, that like, can we forego a top lift? Maybe, but then what does that mean for the sub base and the longevity? Or if we do put it on, what does that mean for the life cycle of the road? And all of these trade-offs that like council's gonna have to consider in the upcoming years of your tenure. And I hope you all continue to be brave.
I was gonna say, welcome to council, you didn't realize it was a risk management course.
Not too concerned about the taxpayer too, right?
Well, exactly, right? And that's just it. We've got the decisions to make and let's be brave about making them. It's really that simple. Through this strategic lens.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Hey.
Just need our voters to assume positive intent.
Not assume.
We need like a 7 habits course going on here, hey, yeah, so positive intent. Okay, next slide, please. Storm infrastructure, so storm infrastructure is kind of like a newer thing, for most municipalities, it's actually surprising how much underground there is, in Diamond Valley. So that's why a lot of them are, the blues and the greens, because, it's pretty new. Just a note that like a lot of your storm infrastructure, is not just pipes, but also your ditches, your wetlands, all of the natural assets, provide, your storm drainage, services. Easiest to look at this in terms of capital costs. And then the ditches and those pieces are usually more of like a maintenance piece. And so we're focusing mostly on the capital replacement costs for now. And the yellow are mostly because they're under major roads. So less on the likelihood of them failing.
So for the roads like 22, because we have labeled Valley Trail coming out of the Turner Valley side, you assume that's probably just ditch, but what does Alberta Transport, do they deal with this? They just help with paving only, right? storm infrastructure is not considered beach.
Well, that's an interesting question and a valid one. So the storm system in Turner Valley outflows, so there is actually a pipeline that
is
runs
there?
under the highway out to the, so where the old Turner Valley sign was, it's actually a large outflow that goes into the river and there's actually an outflow license that I need to manage on that. However, Alberta Transportation also deals with storm, surface waters, which is the ditch. And culverts along that ditch.
Yeah, it is a good question, because they do send them.
Yeah.
The storm.
So
usually-
AT will manage surface water through their ditches. But the town does have a pipeline under the highway.
All right, here it is, priority projects. Now, again, we're labeling them priority projects because they are labeled as high risk. Again, these projects are showing up because when you add up, like we talked about before, when you add up the risk for all the infrastructure types in the road, they're showing up as higher. So, if they don't include a storm, the risk gets a little bit lower, but it gives you, there's still quite a few projects here, so it gives you a general sense as to which ones would rise to the top. And we've included the water mains, the storm and the sanitary and the roads that were labeled as like the high risk, to give you that information as well. So the numbers are provided for those those bigger road rehab projects. And we've got those high level cost estimates for those priority projects here. So this is showing the east side, and then we've got another map that shows the west side. Projects that have been identified, and they're usually on a per block basis. And decisions can be made on if we tackle more or less for the capital planning processes.
So for clarity on those, what is exactly, like, it's not just the road, is it? I mean, it's a section of road that's all the infrastructure within that road, correct?
Yeah, yeah. And so it's not intended, again, there's, we could as engineers come in and say, here's your projects, just do this, this, and this, and this. It's more intended to give you the information, to have those conversations that, and ask those questions of each other, to make those decisions. And so in the past, like I know, for example, Black Diamond, had a project that was like 4th or 5th on the list, but it happened to be, the road that serves the school. And so that's a level of service consideration that it was still higher risk. And there was some issues with the road, being a problem, and so the town decided to move that up. But they justify it by saying it serves the school, and so we think that this is a higher priority.
I remember that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in, say like 4th Ave, you've only got a little section with the yellow around it. The whole purple.
Yeah,
That's where the problem.
that's where
could
the
have
higher
been that
risk,
one.
the higher risk pieces are, yeah. And then the road is identified as like a higher risk itself.
So that's 4th, right?
Yeah.
So that's a fairly newer road compared to the west side of Government Road there. What's causing that? Just kind of interested to know, because I know there's a sidewalks there. Now, sidewalks there have sunk in that area too, right? I think I sent you a picture of that one.
Bad subgrade.
what I wondered.
There's a lot of clay up there.
Yeah.
Everything moves and unfortunately infrastructure doesn't like movement. So, yeah, that whole area is really horrible if you drive around the streets or all like that.
Yeah. So a question on that, when that's Kaiser's to the north, right? So is there a way that we can mitigate that at development stage, that the contractor's aware so that they're taking that bad product out?
Yeah, absolutely. That's where the geotechnical studies are critical. And then you can engineer solutions for those problems.
Yeah, we had some major issues with Parkview, I remember.
Yep.
With that soil.
And sometimes I know from speaking and seeing some of the excavations in that area, it's the material underground. But then sometimes it's just poor workmanship with poor compactions and.
So this gives you a general sense of the dollars, like I said, if you decide to move forward in project getting, so these cost estimates are based on, you know, an average per lineal meter, like how much it typically costs for that size of sewer main, water main, storm main. Assuming, you know, valves every certain amount of meters and manholes every certain amount, so you just kind of apply a general cost with some like contingency in there for that high level piece, and then if you're like, okay, we're gonna approach number one, then you have an engineer actually review what's in the road and provide like a specific, more specific cost estimate for that piece. Any other questions, comments about those ones? Okay, and then we'll look at the west side. Next slide, please. And so these are the overall risk score. Craig made a good point that the west side, a lot of times there's not the full infrastructure in a road, so that maybe as a lower score. We've got the high risk like infrastructure types included here, so sanitary gravity main are a high risk there, and then the water main here is a high risk as well.
So this is just zoomed in on the main area of town. Does that mean there's nothing on the south, this map?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Cards. So the last map and this map are just looking at the higher scores. So we've got a rating for all the roads in town, but this is probably enough for you guys to chew on as well.
So where you have the blue marks on there, that's also an area where there's no sewer.
Yeah, so we wanted to show those high risk, like individual items. So this water main is showing as high risk. There may be, I'm not as familiar, but there may be sewer and pieces in here that are not fives in terms of risk. But it kind of just flags to look at that one.
There's no always they can just down there, I believe, none of them have sewer. You know, sewer, they're on their own, are they not, Greg?
Yeah, so everything from that four-way stop south, they're all on septic.
Yeah. I know the whole thing.
You have what Calkins is septic.
Yeah,
Or it's
Hopkins has got sanitary,
Sanitary.
but sorry, Ocalta and that stub of Main Street South is septic.
Hey, Chair, I just want to mention Oak Sits came out a few times saying this doesn't look as bad as we think, but just bear in mind, you just add up these two columns, you're already at 10 million. We haven't talked about lift stations, we haven't talked about paving projects, we haven't talked about replacing roofs, we haven't talked about the fire engines, right? So it's, you know, at least these numbers are somewhat realistic that we can manage with discipline, but I would just suggest that, like, oh, okay, I thought, you know, this was gonna be 100 million and now I only see 10 million, so everything's good. This still very much puts us into a high degree of debenture. So,
And if I may add to, keep in mind that 3 years from now, what's not on this list, there may be additional items. Those are all close to that score, so.
The fours become fives.
Yes, so, age will affect this chart as well.
Have all these ones that have been identified here as high risk, have we done the video and all those analysis on all these ones, so we're pretty sure what these based on?
Yeah, so a lot of this material is stemming from video that Urban and MP had done multiple years ago, and those high risk lines that were identified 10 years ago were re-cameraed to see how much degradation has occurred over time. That's something we were doing last fall. And happy to report for most of them, they haven't degraded a whole lot more, but they have certainly degraded. And some of them are worse than they were, obviously. So yes, the long answer to that question is yes, we have done camera work. And that includes storm work as well. Storm line and inspections. Water lines are a little tougher because obviously you can't send cameras down. But with water, what isn't shown on this map are areas of high risk that we haven't really been great at, especially the last 3 years. Admittedly, we've been more reactive because we get a break, we fix a break, we chase a break, and there's been so much going on, we just haven't been capturing that in its fullest. But there are areas within the system that may become more critical than some of the critical on here. And I'm not trying to convolute this more, but that's where that risk assessment comes in, where if we have a great sanitary line and the road's okay, but then the water line sucks. But we keep coming back to the same block, fixing piece after piece. That might be something we decide, well, we better fix this or we're just going to chase this all year round. So. It's not easy.
No, and it's a good question, right? So the sanitary, it's easier to do the video inspection. And like Craig mentioned, there was a bunch of video inspection done, but it's costly to do the whole town. And so there are older, like 2013, 2016 videos that were inspections that were done and that we included. So if it was like a big structural defect, we bumped it up significantly. If it was like a deficiency, we bumped it a little bit just to show that it was a higher risk. And then the rest was based on age and material if we didn't have those pieces. But if the town decides to move forward with a project, we recommend just like checking that video if it exists. And then if it doesn't, just doing a quick run through just to make sure that the town kind of knows kind of where it's at and what's needed there.
And operationally, like I said earlier, we do complete camera work if we suspect that there's a problem while we're flushing some of those lines as well.
And then the road condition assessments will be done, and if it might shift, it could shift the prioritization, but we're expecting not like significantly. Lots of great questions and thoughts. Any other things that come to mind? Okay. Slide please. So like I mentioned, a big chunk of the work has been focused on the risk and the capital costs. But you do have there is information that's going to be provided as part of the growth infrastructure review. So looking at like what's the capacity in the existing sewer mains for more development? Where are there issues with, like, there's not enough capacity now that there's issues with sewers? Looking at fire flow, is there enough fire flow? As per the fire underwriter survey standards. The Black Diamond, there was a master drainage plan that looks at level of service. And then as part of the IMP, MPE, met with Public Works and talked through some of the issues that they're noticing, with respect to storm, and that'll be identified as part of it. And then, recommendations for a future transportation master plan, like Craig mentioned, the amount of traffic that's going on the roads, and then whether you need to do something different or build an intersection, those pieces. Would inform the level of service considerations. And then overall master drainage plan eventually for Diamond Valley to look at kind of the system as a whole, the storm system. So I've got this circle here because it's just like this infrastructure master plan gives you more information, and then it's kind of thinking about what additional information would help you make even more informed decisions, but you do it with what you have, and as long as you can justify kind of why you made the decision, which hopefully this provides that to you. So that's related to the service considerations for linear infrastructure. Any questions on that? Okay. Actually, on that, the growth infrastructure review is looking at the existing capacity, the existing fire flow, and identifying if there's anything that's needed to maintain those service levels. A good example is the water main on the east side of town. The town was growing, and there wasn't an infrastructure master plan. And in 2014, Fire Under Survey comes in and they look at all the hydrant flows and realize that the northeast industrial area has like very limited fire flow capacity. And so then the town was kind of in a more reactive mode, going, oh no, we've got people coming in to this industrial area, and we don't have like that level of service required. And had to kind of put all their dollars, their capital dollars, into putting in looping to loop the system to allow for that fire flow and that redundancy. So this infrastructure master plan hopefully helps you guys understand what's required so that you can plan more appropriately for those pieces.
So did that only meet current capacity, or was it for that future capacity as well with that water loop?
Yeah, the water looping considered future development in that area. So the Coles Crossing, Kaiser, those pieces.
So with that, because of that expense, this might be under the growth, might be a better question for funding under the growth model. Is there a way that we can do like a value add so that because we added the extra capacity, when these areas are developed, there's that capacity surcharge that they pay on connection
That's right.
on top of the bylaw?
Yeah.
Or on top of the offset levy, can we do that?
It's including your current offsite levy for that infrastructure, for the areas that haven't paid offsite levies yet. So
Because I'm wondering if it'd be better to do like a local connection charge for each lot that comes in, because we've increased the capacity, just like we did for West End, right?
Yeah, so there's some considerations on developers and like what kind of developments are coming in. So currently it's an offsite levy that any new development would pay for that portion of the water infrastructure. And then you could look at like service, like additional service costs. I mean, as if you are developing one cost, you have a certain service connection fee. Could cover it. It's some considerations on like how you might go about doing it, but it's a good question, right? It's just like being able to get paid back for the.
Because we've increased the capacity.
Yeah.
It's not for future, it's already done.
Yeah.
But because we've got it, they can move forward.
Yeah.
So that's slightly different than an offsite levy, correct? If we bring forward a development charge upon connection.
It is including your current offsite levies, that project. So that you can collect for development in that area for that now.
So does that mean when the offset levies do come in for the project that is already completed, that just automatically goes into our bank account that we can spend? It's not limited anymore? Carry notes.
Because that's a challenge with outside levy, right? They're limited where we can apply them. That's why we're asking. Go ahead, Carrie.
Yeah, so the offsite levies are intended to basically fill up that account. So if you have $250,000 in the OSL pot and you take on a $1.25 million project, you basically have a $1 million debt to that account. So as you keep collecting OSLs, they don't go into general revenue. They go back to pay back that project through that OSL pot still.
You can technically have negative reserve accounts. Then.
Yep.
What you're telling me.
Yes, because the project can come due before all of the OSLs are collected.
Well, as sad as having smaller reserves are, I'm glad we don't have negative reserves, so.
And this will inform whether, that's a consideration as well, yeah. Okay. As Adam mentioned, that was just the linear infrastructure, so there's non-linear infrastructure to consider. As part of the infrastructure master plan and the asset replacement forecast that we showed you, we looked at generally when an asset's approaching the end of life, to understand kind of what further investigation is required. Like I just mentioned, this is looking at replacement based on like life cycle. But then there's also the considerations related to infrastructure capacity upgrades for growth to think about as well. And so that's kind of like pulling all that information together to make decisions on your capital planning projects. So there might be some projects that where the risk is like a 4 or 3 in terms of likelihood of failure, but then they might need a capacity update to support infill development. And so keeping track of those pieces, and we'll have it for the implementation kind of how you might think about those things as well. Okay, next slide. So yeah, here's the nonlinear infrastructure that has reached or is expected to reach their service life very soon. So in Turner Valley, there's the original wastewater treatment plant that converted to a lift station. So there's some electrical upgrades that were done in 2016, I believe. It's expected the pumps are at end of their life cycle, and the building's very old. It sounds like it was built in 1970s. So there's gonna be probably some costs associated with that one coming soon, and there's some analysis required to better understand what that looks like. Also with the Royalite, Bailey Ridge, and North lift stations, they're reaching the end of their life, and we talked a bit about this yesterday, Craig, is there's the buildings and then there's the pumps inside them, and the pumps usually reach the end of their life sooner, and so looking at just replacing the pumps sometimes, or if you're looking at the full building. And then the 2 reservoirs, so Turner Valley and Black Diamond reservoirs. Turner, my understanding is that the treated reservoir in Turner Valley is pretty old and kind of close to the end of its life. And then we know that there was an inspection done a few years ago on the Black Diamond that showed some cracks. So these are kind of, as Adam mentioned, some costs that may be coming up. And so doing a little bit more analysis to understand what that looks like and what would be required is recommended.
So that's these reservoirs and those stations, that's not in the cost, like the spiking up.
It is, yeah, it is, yeah,
There.
yeah, that's right, yeah. Okay, so that's the nonlinear infrastructure related to water, sewer. Storm is pretty new, so nothing identified there. If you go to the next slide. There was also MPE did like a high level risk assessment of the buildings, a desktop assessment. So not, it's not, it's recommended to do more detailed as a building is getting to the end of its life, having like a structural mechanical kind of go in and just like check and do an assessment of what's needed, knowing that the building's not going to blow up in 50 years. So like where do you put your dollars? But it gives you, it kind of raises like where you might want to start paying it more attention. And there'll be a little bit more detail on the risk assessment and upgrades in the report, but this kind of gives you a general sense as to what to be paying attention to. And not surprises, I think, to you guys. Next slide. So these are kind of, it's a table showing your facilities, kind of age and stage, some of the key risks identified, and then the overall risk level. So as was identified as part of the asset replacement forecast, and I know as part of many conversations that you all have had, that the Black Diamond Public Works previous building, the Flare and Derrick, and the pool are at the higher risk. And then we've got a few moderate risk pieces, the town office, the spray park, the Turner Valley Public Works, and the fire halls, as showing up as more of the moderate risk items as well. And again, some of the key risks are identified there to kind of look more into. Any surprises, or it sounds like you guys have had lots of conversations about these pieces.
Some of these repairs could be minor.
Yes, yeah, like, it's kind of looking into,
Cost-wise.
I mean.
Like cost wise, I'm saying.
I mean, when you look at that pie chart that I showed earlier, buildings are actually like
Yeah.
a small part,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it relatively, but still a cost.
Yeah,
Looking at it.
Jerry, I guess the ice plant was relatively minor.
At 1.5 million.
Right,
Yeah.
so
More than us.
just food for thought when we say what's minor, right? I mean, a full replacement of a rink might be 10 to 20 million, so it's $1 million upgrade minor, I suppose it would be.
So with that, you have the pool in here, that's the pool building, or does it also include the outdoor, like the full pool? As part of the building?
I believe it's kind of like looking at the whole package, yeah.
That's beyond high. Overall risk at high? No, it's past high. It's extreme.
I should say to you, Chair, like, keep in mind, like, this is still, even though there is some level of objectivity with 1 through 5 and, high, moderate, low, like, it is a bit of eye in the beholder, right? I mean, like an unrenovated, building like the town office, I mean, the HVAC simply doesn't even work, right? But yet we only call it moderate, but it's, right now it doesn't quite meet OH&S requirements, right? So it's, I guess take with a pinch of salt, if you will.
Yeah, it's a good point, Adam. Like that OH&S is a level of service consideration. And this is really just looking at like the risks and the costs, but that factors into how you prioritize your infrastructure.
The curling rink doesn't have the refrigeration system. Is that? Are they not looking at a new refrigeration system or an upgraded refrigeration system for the curling rink?
You might be able to use the
The one.
ice plant that we just put in, that's what they're looking
Yeah,
at.
they're looking at that, I think, but isn't the curling like rink almost like more privately funded than the?
Hopefully.
Just
We
because
would
of
like it
like,
to be.
It's
the
our,
assumption of
still
that.
our building.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's still our asset.
But they manage it.
but yeah, that's why I was,
Yeah.
because we manage the arena, but they manage their, yeah.
So there's some upgrades that are being reviewed currently. So the
Real quick on the curling rink, we
Um,
don't want to get into the weeds too much, but
yeah, so the curling club is definitely an interesting mess. It's very similar to our library, not that the library is a mess at all. But we own the asset, we own the building, but the function or the operation within that building is their management. So that ice plant, because it's part of what they do in there, that's their responsibility. With respect to where they're at, I really don't know. They have worked really closely with Train to figure out what their scope of work will be and the cost to do that work. I am under the impression that they're looking to fundraise that money. But where they're at now, they're going to proceed with that. I'm not certain yet. They're on hiatus for the summer months right now, so.
So are they not looking to use the ice plan we just put in there, or they are?
Well, yes, they would, but they can't use it directly. They need, their own control system, pumps and temperature management system. But they can use the condensers and the coolers that we have in place. So, and it's already plumbed and ready for them to tie into it when they're ready to pay for their system.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay. Good questions. So actually, this is all being brought up. We'll identify like a high level understanding of risks. But other considerations is level of service. So the use, the users, you think about accessibility as a level of service, program fit. The pool is an example, right? Like how many people are using it? And like what are the considerations related to that aspect? The programs that are within it, like thinking those things through, looking at operating costs. And then is this in line with your MVP and strategic plan to help with that decision making? So I'm not a resident of Diamond Valley, but I like to go to the Flair and Derrick a lot for the Beneath the Arch concerts. And I'm my heart is like, oh, Flair and Derrick, like, oh my gosh. But how many of there are people that are like, connected to it? It's a good question, right? Like, this is my example because I personally love it. But it's, does the Flair and Derrick and the Beneath the Arch concert, can that be held someplace else? Is it like making Diamond Valley an attractive place to be? This is kind of an example of just like things to think about when you're thinking about like what you do with that building or the pool or like the curling rink, investing in the ice, like how many people are using this and like how do you think about that when you're making decisions about it?
Yeah, the silly thing I find about that with the Flair and Derrick is you could have a user group like Beneath the Arch use a school, but they don't allow alcohol, which knocks them out. So they sit empty, school divisions whine for money, yet you can't rent them for what people want to use them for.
Right,
So I don't know if there's something we could do to lobby the government on that one, but like, it's kind of silly that we have heated, nice buildings paid for by somebody else. It's empty. While we flail along with Flair and Derrick. That Hazel wish would just blow up on that.
Yeah.
I have the love for the Flair and Derrick, but I also see what their cost is.
Sounds great, yeah.
Yeah, so again, it goes that triangle, right? So it's understanding and like thinking about who uses the Flair and Derrick. And like what is it used for and what services it provide? How does it support your strategic objectives? But then how much is it costing? What are the capital costs and operations costs? What are the risks associated with keeping it open? So it's understanding all those pieces to make those decisions. And those, again, requires bravery. Those are harder ones to make. Any other comments or thoughts there?
It's looking like, keep rolling.
Okay. All right, next one. Okay, so we're gonna, all right, I think we had 7, yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
If you can get it done in 10 minutes, that's perfect.
Okay.
That's all good.
Okay, growth infrastructure considerations. So next slide here. So we'll provide some general decision-making considerations around growth infrastructure. Again, like the actual growth infrastructure will come in the report. Connection to your MVP and how you make decisions related to your MVP. And then how this infrastructure master plan will support that growth infrastructure decision-making piece. So there's lots of ways that you can fund infrastructure and some of them have been brought up. This is just a general summary of tools that can be used. Kind of the key buckets or the grants, using it as a condition of development that came up earlier. Taxes, other taxes like business improvement or local improvement, and user fees like utility rates, which the town uses currently. And then levies. So there's lots of different tools that you can use. It's just thinking about what tools are best for your context. Making sure that the tools don't lead the town. You're thinking about what tools would best support the town's direction overall.
You go back to that one.
Yeah.
I want to ask Lisa a question on this, because I'm not a fan of offsite levies after finding out how little we could invest in our West End addition. So when you look at that tool, plus some others that may not be there, what would be the best for us to make sure we're moving forward with?
That's
That's a very loaded
Can I
question, I
actually,
understand.
do you mind if I go to the next one?
Absolutely.
Yeah, because it provides you with
related.
some things to think about. So there's a number of things here to think about when you're thinking about what kind of tools you might use. So thinking about legislation, right? Is the infrastructure eligible?
There's, spit it out.
In legislation, so offsite levies is usually kind of what you're thinking about, like, is this infrastructure, could it even be included in an offsite levy? How much risk should the town bear in front-ending infrastructure costs? So again, these are just general, and we'll talk a little bit about what the MDP says. But how much risk should the town bear in front-ending the infrastructure costs? What's the development industry's capacity to deliver infrastructure? Again, that's very context specific, understanding the development industry. What's the town's financial capacity? That just came up just now. So the debt capacity, the servicing, the opportunity cost. So if you're paying for growth infrastructure, you're not putting money towards replacement and thinking about those things. What's the long range outlook related to that financial capacity? So if how long will it take to get paid back for some of that infrastructure? Who benefits? Is it one development? Is it multiple developments or existing residents benefiting from that infrastructure? That goes to that Kaiser example. How does this align with the town's strategic priorities? What are the trade-offs? How much control does the town need over the process, timing, infrastructure being built? So this example is control is if you were to build a fire hall. You probably don't want developers to build it. Just like probably, right? So it's just like the town would probably want to front end and deliver that. And then if it's included in the offset levies, get paid back from developers. This is kind of like we'll get to the next slide in terms of what we understand the town's approach is, but is the town comfortable expanding to allow developers to front end? That sounds like you are. And thinking about what's been done historically. So if it's a big change, there's gonna be probably more pushback. And so thinking about those pieces as well. So these are kind of all, when you're thinking about growth infrastructure and how you finance and fund it, here's kind of the considerations related to the question about offset levies.
Chair, I'll just kind of take that one since it's obviously a hot button, but I mean, you go down the list, you've already maximized grants.
Exactly.
Right? We talk OSLs all the time. I mean, we'll bring back a report in September and see what we can allocate towards capital, but like you mentioned with West End, I mean, $20 million project, 300,000 in OSLs.
Yeah. It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous, right? So, all new development is developer funded, and that's why we're going to tribunal over a sidewalk, essentially, right? Debenture, reserves, tax, it's all tax. Fortunately, it's all tax. Yeah.
Well, the reason I asked that question is one of the things, if you recall, at our town hall that we did for our water utility rates, there's a lot of, and it's been a continuing conversation. how can we spread the cost over time as opposed to dumping it on residents currently? Even with the increase to the utility rates that we're doing, because that's starting to stress many people in our community, especially those on a fixed income. So is there a model that we can take? And I've done a little bit of research. I don't know enough about them. I want to dive more. To see how that, like a value capture model kind of intrigues me a little bit. Because then you can do the connection cost, then you could do it into a utility billing to expand it over time so that it's not all upon the current residents, and as we grow, it's further reducing that pressure. Go ahead, Lisa.
Oh, just if I may, just a thought on that. So when we talk about utility rates, I think the issue we're faced with is that even where we're at right now, we might be covering the cost of the operations, but we're not able to put anything away for reserves. And so if we end up in a spot where operationally we're not covering it with the rate, it's going to hit property taxes. So either way, your current residents are going to pay for it. It's just a matter of where they pay for it. I mean, even with franchise fees, you're same. Obviously, there's a few differences in who's paying, but the majority of the people are the same people. It's just how you distribute it.
Yeah. So to that point, one of the other things I noted that we can do based on the research I did, a utility rate capital rider that goes out to the utility bill as opposed to the rate, so that it shows, it builds that reserve. I wonder if that's an approach we can follow.
That is the approach we're doing with the those fixed fees are meant to be that. They are meant to in their entirety go into reserves, but unfortunately we're not charging enough for our operating to cover with just our per cubic meter fees for water and wastewater.
If we look at even something like the debenture to spread that out, so for West End, we have a debenture which goes to 2049. So future taxpayers will keep paying for that, but every year we pay 300,000 out of operating to service that debt. So however we try to square that circle, it fundamentally comes back to the trade-off of tax.
Yeah, because the value capture one kind of intrigued me as I was researching that, especially with using West End as an illustration, because it increased capacity for developers to come in. So then if we can connect that value capture to that increased capacity with a connection charge, as opposed to an outside levy, we can apply it a little bit easier to that capacity that we just increased. It's kind of an interesting model. I don't know enough about it. I'm just researching it. So. Because it goes further than simple cost recovery based in my research. So I'll go to Carrie and then Megan, you can.
Yeah, and I think I discussed this in our planning strategic session. That when we go down that road, we have to be very careful with the legislation. And if it looks like an offsite levy and can be construed as an offsite levy, it will likely be taken in favor of a developer as an offsite levy, and then we can't double charge. So I'm not saying that's not doable. My caution to the brains in this room and the good intentions in this room is to tread lightly in that regard, to make sure that if we do go in that direction, that we likely have some, very smart people reviewing that approach.
Oh, 100%. And, it's been filtered through what the Alberta rules are, MGAs and whatnot. It's just an option I'm reviewing right now. It's because of course, we don't want to go down the path of opening ourselves up to litigation, because what's the point? Looking at what Canmore had to deal with and their challenges of not doing it correctly. I think there's agreement, unless I'm not reading the room correctly. The offsite levies don't work the way we had hoped they had. And even a town our size, putting them in place was likely not the right way to go. We can't recreate and rewrite history. That's not what we're doing. But if there's a better option moving forward that captures the development costs in a way that we can apply those connection fees, those riders, in a way that actually developer servicing agreements potentially we can pursue. These then allow us to really apply what we've received to the infrastructure requirements rather than just 5% of a massive project, not even 5%. I mean, it just didn't make any sense.
I'm so curious. I want to follow up with you on that about West End.
like again later, because I'm, yeah, very curious about that. Yeah, these are all considerations, right? Like thinking about what the best tool is based on your context, as well. Go to the next slide, please. So we've kind of talked a little bit about your context, what the MGP says about growth infrastructure and offsite levies is here. So it's, you know, it's very much focused on using as much capacity as possible before you build more infrastructure. Supporting contiguous efficient growth, not allowing developments to go over here and then having to build this huge sewer main, for example. Conduct, you know, annual offsite levy bylaw reviews to reflect the updated growth related costs. So, you know, firewalls have been discussed, and so if there's like a requirement for growth infrastructure that the MVP says it's going to be included in an offset levy currently. It requires developers to it says fund, but I'm saying, like, I'm assuming it's front end service connections and oversizing with offset levies doing the funding of it and ensuring proportionate contributions for offset levies. And that the developer must fund new transportation linkages or upgrades and associated infrastructure that's required as a direct result of new development. So it's pretty specific on developers front ending, paying the capital costs upfront for the transportation, and then also for any like infrastructure upgrades and service connections. In there. So pretty clear on, you know, efficiency, effectiveness, growth piece for growth is what I hear for this.
So, yeah, so for those that weren't in the room, basically what was given in front of steering committee were three kind of options on the continuum. So one was growth at any cost. You come in with an idea, we want to support it. The other end was no growth is better than the wrong growth, whatever that is. And then there's kind of a middle ground. In steering committee, if this is a 1 and this is a 5, we've kind of landed at a 4. So being very strategic with growth, and when developers come in, be more choosy about what projects actually move forward. The ones chosen being more beneficial to the town as a whole, rather than, oh, yay, growth, we like growth. And a great example of that is Colts Crossing. The municipal fiscal impact assessment, the only reason that gave a positive rate return on investment to the town was because of the non-residential component. If you take out or if you reduce the non-residential component, it's a wash or it becomes a tax burden. So kind of some of the context there.
Go ahead, Cindy.
Taking out, are you talking about just the growth on the commercial on the north side, or also the quarter section on the south where we forced?
So the one that came in front of council that was both with the commercial at the top.
Okay.
Yeah, the MFIA from that showed that if you removed or reduced that, it would become a wash to the tax base, or actually be a tax burden to the town.
So these are the many municipalities have like that tension on that Carrie mentioned about, like, we want growth, but then there's a cost to it. And so like trying to kind of find your risk tolerance and risk like where you're comfortable as a municipality. And actually, I think it's the next slide. It's the next slide. It's funny because I didn't know about that discussion. But this is kind of what's been discussed, and what Carrie just mentioned is having, you know, developers finance and fund projects directly, so they pay like all the infrastructure that's required for growth is on one extreme, and then the other extreme is the municipality finances and recovers the utility rates of taxes. on the other side, and then, like I said, there's lots of funding tools available. Offset levies are is the most common. And offset levies kind of go in between, right, depending on how you set it up. So, the town currently is saying, well, in the current offset levies, which we'll talk about, but in the current offset levies, the town would front end, well, it was set up with the idea that the town would front end a lot of the infrastructure. It's not, it doesn't say that specifically, but, and then they would recover through development. And offset levies are, a tool for financing growth. Funding growth, and so, it's supporting development, by allowing them to kind of pay back a portion instead of having to pay for the whole infrastructure. And then, so you kind of, the town's approach, which is funny that you mentioned that, is, we thought by reading the MVP is here, and that sounds like that is the town's stance on it. Is being more fiscally minded, by putting, the costs onto the developer, versus taking on the costs yourselves. And there's implications to growth. If currently, I don't know of any developers that are like, I'm gonna come in and front end a big infrastructure project. And so it's just knowing that you might not have those developers wanting to do that, and that might reduce your growth. But then you're not taking on the costs of the infrastructure as well. So again, those trade-off decisions there. So these are the MVP growth areas. The MVP, as you all know, and as Carrie just mentioned, it's very much focused on efficiency and effectiveness, and so infill development first. That non-residential growth. Increase your taxes before expansion outward. There's some. Sorry, you were going to speak to this, and I knew I was going to do that. I just want to mention more.
No, basically, the way that we're gonna frame the growth analysis is based on this strategic map in the MVP. With the infill in the yellow areas being a priority and the mixed use residential in the orange. And then after that, we start looking at the other quarter sections that are more so just residential, but that's kind of the basis for the growth analysis that's happening right now, and how we will be analyzing the infrastructure for growth.
So the infrastructure master plan will look at all the infrastructure to full build out. And then that helps the town and be informed on how you might make decisions about the planning, like development approvals related to it.
And we'll follow kind of the strict strategy of utilizing existing capacity in existing infrastructure. As the way we'll go forward.
And we're expecting, this is initial, but we're expecting there's some, like, there's quite a bit of capacity in the existing infrastructure that can be used before having to expand too much. Including in West End, so that's what I want to talk about, because look, I think, yeah, it was sized for quite a bit of development, so. Yeah, so that's, efficiency, and it'll inform your decisions on that infrastructure moving forward. Next slide. Talked a lot about this, actually. Sounds like you guys want to include whatever you can, so that the growth pays for growth. Recognizing the financial capacity is low, so not wanting to take on that upfront cost. As part of the infrastructure master plan, we will identify those benefiting areas. So that comment about the water main looping, it's like which areas does that benefit? with water, it's a bit tricky, but it gives you a general sense as to like, how you might, charge for those pieces. The West End is another example of just like, what's the capacity use, there? The delivery approach is that, you know, developers front end as much as possible. And yeah, the developers have historically not had the capacity to front end infrastructure, and so that's just something to know. And it sounds like the towns would rather have good, like, effective growth, than allowing for, like, lots of growth and infrastructure, financial considerations there. Have I captured those, like, the context for Diamond Valley and everybody's understanding? Okay, next slide. I already skipped ahead, for this slide here, it's basically just recognizing that you have Black Diamond and Turner Valley offsite levy. There's some different approaches for each one of those levies. And they were based on outdated growth models and assumptions, so they were based on previous annexation servicing studies.
Sorry, Jerry, I just back the other side without going back, but that's the direct friction we're feeling right now, right? So the town used to pay for a lot of the developers. And now we're telling them we want you to pay for it, right? So we've 180 degree our methodology, and that is the friction we're feeling day to day.
And if I can actually add on to that, in addition to changes in the expectations in that regard, we're also expecting a much higher level of professionalism from our developers. So a great example is for our road use permits. We don't accept this chicken scratch on a napkin. That's not acceptable anymore. We're expecting a professional transportation engineer to use the manual uniform traffic. Matt knows what it is, where we actually have the proper diagrams and the proper signage and the proper nomenclature on the plan, so that when we approve it, everybody's on the same page. That the plans are professionally drafted to scale. Again, not just the chicken scratch on napkins. So what used to be acceptable 5, 10, 15 years ago just really doesn't cut it anymore. So a lot of pushback and friction there as well.
And when you get that pushback and friction, speaking for council, let them know it's council's choice. Because you have our full support on that.
That's huge, to be honest.
Thanks,
There's not a lot of councils, like, it's just tricky, right? It requires a lot of bravery. You get developers knocking down your door saying like, you're stunting growth because you're not allowing this piece. But when Carrie was talking, I was thinking about the subdivisions that were built, you know, several years ago, and Craig just mentioned 4th Avenue, right? Where the quality's not great, and then you guys were stuck.
Yeah.
So having those requirements to help kind of prevent those risks from occurring.
Fusion Valley, I think.
It's the Fusion Valley kind of.
That's
why
our training.
we're like, yeah, that happened again.
Yeah, it is tricky though, right? Because you might not see those developers for a while, like you just might not have that interest. And so it's just recognizing those trade-offs as well.
And I think also increasing our fees too. That's probably another level of development too.
Yeah, so again, it's kind of putting the cost on developers, right? Rather than the municipality, and thinking through those pieces. And so some updates to the offset levies, to include the overall Diamond Valley, is important. Next slide. Get this, 15 minutes, yeah, I did lie, I apologize, thanks everybody for the time. This is the last slide. So this infrastructure master plan will provide you with information on capacity. Existing, they'll provide those sequencing consideration like Selena mentioned. And it'll include, because growth is really hard to project nowadays, like everything's kind of out of whack in the world.
Well, and a great example of that is when we look back at the growth map from the MDP. Like that was developed not even 2 years ago, and a lot of the applications that were on the table and the assumptions that went into the map in the MDP, even 2 years later, are completely out the window.
And you're not the only municipality, all the other municipalities we work with on offset levies and thinking about this stuff, they're just like, it's out of whack. So the way to mitigate some of those risks is we're putting in just all the assumptions, right? We're gonna put down, you know, what areas are benefiting from the infrastructure where we can. Like I said, water is kind of tricky. Project triggers, so like, so you know, like when this area develops, this infrastructure is required, or if there's this many people, this lift station upgrade is required. And then also, we'll provide for the growth infrastructure at some high level estimated capital costs similar to the replacement costs to inform, like you guys talked about, it sounds like the town's not willing to pay those upfront costs, but then you have that information for offset levies or just understanding development agreements and things like that. Okay, and then one more slide just to say what we're doing next. We'll flip that. We've already talked about this quite a bit. It's the next slide.
Next step slide.
Oh, and another one. There we go. Okay, so what we're gonna do is update the road risk assessments to look at the overall prioritization plan. We're gonna identify the growth infrastructure needs and sequencing, and then we're gonna write you guys a report. And that report will include some implementation considerations on how you use it to make decisions on capital planning in the future. Thank you all for your patience. I could talk about this stuff, but I recognize it's not like the most exciting topic, but I appreciate all of you.
Well, thanks for your work
Thank
on this, Megan. Much appreciated. Selena, we appreciate that as well. Any other questions to wrap it up, council?
Not for now.
Perfect. That's
For
Adam. Yeah, we've got lots of questions with Adam over the next few months. How are we doing this? No, but thanks again for being here tonight, council. Let's go ahead and take a 6-minute break. Perfect. Thank you so much for joining us after the recess. We're going to jump to our next item on our agenda here, which is a review of council donation and the external municipal communication policies. This has been brought to our attention primarily because we had the presentation, the delegation from the Rolling Barrage came through, and we want to see how best we can support them. So council, I trust that you've read through this and have some thoughts here. I'll turn it over to our CA here just for clarity. Give us a brief summary on it and we can discuss what best action moving forward.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So, yeah, Rolling Barrage came through, there was discussion, maybe a monetary contribution or non-monetary, and what the administration suggesting is to keep it aligned with current policy. We'd suggest a non-monetary contribution, and this could be something like, the mayor and I were talking about, maybe we buy a bunch of Canada flags and we line the streets similar to what Okotoks does. And then those flags can be reused for Canada Day, they can be reused for Remembrance Day. And it doesn't breach any of our policies. The reason why STARS, Search and Rescue, and Citizens on Patrol are here because council specifically identified those 3 services for the community. And those are incorporated into the budget. So if council wanted to add a 4th, would likely require an amendment to the policy. So we're not recommending that. We're suggesting we just sort of reorient our support to Rolling Barrage through a few different other means.
Sounds good. Council, any questions on that one? Any thoughts?
Tell me about the flags.
Go ahead, Colin.
Okay, cool. Sorry, I missed that part. Yeah.
When I saw the Rolling Barrage, I thought, it is irresponsible for us to get taxpayers money for that. But we should acknowledge them, with the monetary. But what I thought could be a possibility is because they talked about having breakfast at the Legion. The Lions are a great source. Maybe we could put those 2 together. Maybe the Lions can help fund the Legion breakfast or something. I feel like that the Lions and the Legion have a lot more invested into the cause of the veteran portion of their cause, right? It ties a little bit better together.
Absolutely, Chair. If I could add to that too. So the fire department does assist with that breakfast too. So if if we were able to just map this out, what the administration would suggest is that fire, RCMP, municipal enforcement perhaps meet the barrage on the S bend. We do a slow escort through town, perhaps purchase some Canadian flags. Council amplifies it on social media. Try to get folks on the street, and then they would end at the Legion for breakfast, and then perhaps, the Lions with the Legion could maybe work on a breakfast or something like that.
Any other thoughts or considerations? I think the third paragraph from the bottom on page 48 of our agenda, the third and fourth paragraph from the bottom, if you will, reflects administration's suggestion here. Any opposed to that suggestion? I think it's probably the best way to do it. Now, as a committee of the whole, we can't come out of here and make a motion. Ted, what are your thoughts, sir? I know you're a veteran and PTSD is the impacts of it. You understand very well.
And have seen it.
Yeah.
I have been definitely torn, and I have no objection to myself donating quite a bit to the cause. However, as a sitting councillor, I'm very much opposed to forcing anybody to donate to a cause, no matter how noble the cause may be. And so, as a councillor, I'm not going to fight to use taxpayer dollars directly as a contribution. So,
Well said.
and that hurts.
Yeah. No, I fully support it, and it was if I remember correctly, it was my motion that initiated this to see what we could do potentially to support them financially. Because it's not just the veterans, but it's also first responders.
Yeah.
And I'm certain that over time, and as the rolling barrage gets more influence across Canada and more awareness, many of our first responders over time will probably participate in this because of the need. So, but I totally agree with what you're saying, Ted and Colin, about not putting taxpayers' money towards this at the time. So seek direction from Verna or Adam here regarding the motion that we need to make coming out of here. I know we would be basically stating we direct council to move forward with encouraging the our fire and rescue team and appropriate municipal enforcement team to participate in honoring the rolling barrage as they come through. Keep it at that.
I think so, Chair. I'm just writing down a note here if it would be amenable to the committee too. I think we could just bring back what we plan to do report for consent in July.
Yeah.
And then that would sort of map it out for council in the town. And
because it's not August 18th or something they're coming through. I think it's the
20th.
Yeah. Sometime in August.
It's mid.
Yeah, so we have
We have plenty of time.
Yeah.
Hey, Colin, go ahead.
I was gonna say with our postings and stuff like that, are we allowed to tie their fundraising link? So that the people of the town can, so, because they're like to Ted's point, there's gonna be a lot of people that will want to donate, but it's not our responsibility to tell them that they have to. So we gave them the option. And we spearheaded that, like, hey, guys, it's a great cause.
Yeah, absolutely, Chair. I think what our comms policy is good at is it gives a lot of flexibility for council to advocate this sort of stuff too.
Yeah, I think that's what, if we could do that, I think that's a great way to get funding for them. 100%.
I'm gonna turn it over to our finance director here, just to give us some insight.
My
on
face clearly.
What
gave
what we shouldn't do,
No, just on the, sorry, the advertising, I can't remember the name of the policy because it's not in front of me. Thank you. The external municipal communication, it's fairly clear in the policy that the town's website does not put on other organizations. We do put events on the event calendar, which is why in the report it was recommended to have the fire department put it on their Facebook.
Yeah.
And not that I mean, I guess my only concern if we do that, it's gonna open us up to that same
Yeah.
ask from many
Exactly.
local groups.
Yeah, sorry, Chair, I should clarify that. So when I mean the policy is wide open, so council promotes this.
Yeah,
Like on our private pages,
yeah,
Correct.
right?
yeah. And that's where we would link any links to the Rolling Barrage to their social media sites, their
Lions
fundraising
Club,
sites.
Legion, fire department, our personal
Yeah, we keep it
pages.
personal.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. All right, so that's that. Go ahead, Cindy, sorry.
I have one final.
Yeah,
You do?
I think this goes right along with our strategic priority, how we envision a future with strong community groups. Strong community groups means that they're not reliant on us, they operate independently. This is a good test of it. I mean, the level of STARS and COP and Church and Rescue, they're just on a different level for direct impact on the community providing that service. But, you know, these will come up from time to time, so I think sticking to our. Yeah, council has the ability to just take it on, so I don't even see the need for a motion or much more work on it, other than maybe a flags initiative needing approval.
That's gonna come back in.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, I would just suggest there is probably no need for a motion and we'll just bring back a report for consent that can be used to amplify too, and it'll just sort of map out timings, what will happen, sort of thing. Perfect.
Yeah, I think my motion was basically to liaise to see what
Yeah.
support we can
Yeah,
provide as opposed to any direct monetary contribution.
perfect.
So that may suit.
Yeah, absolutely, Chair. Yeah, and in this report, we'll we'll put those details in, because like I said, I was talking with the fire chief, and the intent is, it'll be a pretty good semi-parade, right? Slow barrage coming through town, escorted by emergency vehicles, some flags, some amplification and that, and a good breakfast.
Yeah, to come up east of town to the Legion and cool.
Yeah.
Wrap it up.
Yeah, I was gonna wrap, yeah, and the story that stuck with me when Adam and I were talking about this last week or a couple of days ago. Was, I can't remember the gentleman's name that came, but he told Scott.
Yes.
Scott, when Scott told us the story about the effects of rolling into Okotoks with the flags lining the street, that really stuck with me. So Adam and I were discussing making changes to the donation policy. We kind of wanted to stay away from making changes because we didn't want to open things up again, as some of you have discussed. So we made the suggestion of the flags, and we can use those for other things too. We can use them for the parade. We can use them for Canada Day, as long as Craig doesn't mind putting them up and taking them down, putting them up and taking them down. But a very inexpensive purchase, but a big gesture from our community. So when he told us that story, that really resonated with me. So I was like, let's look at that and see where you guys land on it. So I'm very happy with what's in front of us here.
Cool.
And we already have the candidate, we always have the flags and the poles anyhow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So some of
We have
that's
some.
already done.
Yeah.
We'll get some more.
Well, High River does an initiative with their Legion where you like pretty much sponsor a flag and they put it up in your yard.
Yeah.
That's how they get donations. And like maybe with all these Canada flags we have flying around, we can
You know,
utilize them more. I don't know.
Right on.
awesome.
All right.
And just wondering, when we communicate, is it like standing, or can we like encourage residents, like go walk the Friendship Trail and wave as they go by? Because the Friendship Trail, given the name, has kind of a good
Yeah.
connotation that, let's pack it. Have people encourage you to walk it.
Yeah, should be like right at the front or the end, because then you kind of lose them at the.
Yeah.
Be able to see much of
Even
it.
that people willing to walk and wave.
Yeah, why not?
Great idea, Chair. These are all great ideas. They're easy value adds,
Easy
right?
wins.
It's just so aligns.
All right. Well, thank you for bringing that report back as requested. I think it answers our questions on that one. Last but not least on our agenda, the marketing strategy.
This is.
I'm looking forward to this one.
I know.
And I don't want to jump the gun on this one, but I do have experience on the Economic Development Committee. And I would really like to be part of this if I can put my name forward with that. I think around the organizational meeting, we did talk about potentially standing up the organization or the Economic Development Committee again, but this is a great initiative, a great start. It does hit part of our marketing plan that we wanted. TJ's got an in here, it sounds like, with a cost that is half of what our budget is for this year. But council, any thoughts on this one?
I would just ask if Ashley would also like to be the second.
Can both of us work on that together?
Yeah.
With PJ?
Because Ashley doesn't have many committees, so if you could have.
We could have two of us on there to work with TJ.
And how many hours would it be?
Good
think that's
question, Chair. I'm not sure off the top of my head, so. If the committee was amenable to it, I'd actually like to get this on the June 17th report, so
Yes,
this will just be a retweaked version.
Yeah.
And with the intent of being, hopefully we have some videos by Labor Day-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just if there's any, one of the things that Adam and I talked about is maybe categorize. So you can make different focuses.
Yeah.
Like businesses,
Recreation,
playgrounds,
everything.
yeah, like
Yeah,
all
yeah.
that stuff,
Yeah,
instead of just like, here's Diamond Valley, and you're like flying over different parts with no clear direction, but if you make a bunch of subcategories, and then you let the photographer, the videographer know that, then they can kind of tackle in groups and then create some content around that. But that would obviously be up to you guys. If you're up to anything set for it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That would be a blast. Go ahead, Cindy.
I just have a question about being able to charge per diem. If it's an official committee or assignment, we would need a motion for
In,
that.
yeah, because if you look at the next steps, we're gonna have to select an appoint. We've done that. It will be Ashley and myself. But then when it comes to council, in that request for decision, that'll need to be part of that request for decision is to apply per diems. Yeah. Per the policy, yeah. Which I think we're amenable to, would be able to.
Of course,
Yeah.
yeah, of course.
So let's go through these steps. Do you need these kind of read out as direction today for moving forward?
I'm just, Chair, I'll just look to Verna if we need it, so like, I've got the intent that. We're gonna turn this around into an RFD tomorrow to publish for the 17th, but. Do you need something to initiate any of this, Verna, or?
I don't think so. I can note in the minutes that administration will provide an RFP with the next steps.
Okay,
If that works.
that works.
Okay.
Nice and simple. And make sure you thank TJ for being proactive on this one and getting this done so quickly and finding out what's going on. So.
100% sure, yeah, he, as we know, the fire chief is exceptional at this kind of stuff, and with the drone there, we thought we can have a few wins.
Yeah.
Come from this, so.
Been excited about it. Right. All right, council, any other concerns, any other questions on this one? Are we good? All right, well, with that, that is the last item on our agenda. We do not have anything enclosed. So it's adjourned at, what are we, 7:40?